we are still on the watching the mind. In Pali, it's Chittanupassana. So it's very difficult subject. But mind is so close to us. It's there all the time. And yet some of you say that you can't see the mind. You don't able to know the mind. It is something that is with us all the time. Then what is the mind? What then is the mind? It's difficult to understand the mind because it is immaterial, because you can't see the mind, you can't smell, you can't taste, neither can you touch the mind, nor can you hear the mind. So therefore it is so difficult to understand the mind, but you can understand the body because you can see the body, you can touch it, feel it. But then what is the mind? Where is the mind? Where is it? Is it the mind? Is it in the heart? Is it in where? In the brain? Then where is the mind? Then what is the mind? Now mind arises. It is nowhere in the body. You can't find mind staying, residing somewhere in your body, in your brain or in your heart or in any part of your body. Just as the mango tree, you can't find the mango in the tree, inside the tree. You could cut the tree open, you can cut the branches, the leaves, but there is no mango. Only when the season is there, then you see the mango coming out. The same with the mind. The mind is nowhere else can be found in the body. But because of the condition that comes together, then arises the mind. So therefore, you can't use your eye to see the mind. And you say, okay, I'm meditating, I want to see the mind. And then you use your eye to see. And what do you see? You see blackness. You see a blank. Because you are using your eye to see the mind. Mind cannot be seen with the eye. Neither can mind be heard by the ear. The condition of its arising. How do mind arises? So these are the condition and object. We are born in this world. We are surrounded by objects all the time. Color, sound, smell, object that we can taste, we can touch. We are born in this world surrounded by objects. And so, when we see an object, meaning to say that there is this object, it's near enough, there's this light, and this comes together, arises this eye consciousness, a combination. But if your eye is something wrong, then you can't see the object. But if your eye is all right, the form, the eye form is all right, then when it touches, comes together, then there is this eye consciousness of seeing. Whenever it touches, comes the mind. Then we say the seeing mind. Then arises this seeing mind. We say, oh, that's beautiful. Or that's a bright color. Or that's an ugly side. We call it a seeing mind. Then at that moment, like you look at me, there arises the seeing mind. You look at me and say, oh, this is Brother James. Oh, he's tall, or he's thin, or he's fair, or he's a short hair. thoughts arises, thinking arises. These thoughts actually is part of the mind. It's one section of the mind. There are thoughts that is not thinking, just mind staying with object when you are doing rising, falling, unless you say rising, falling, then you're putting words in your mind, then you are actually, your mind is actually thinking rising, falling, only two words, rising and falling. Unless it got out of this rise and fall, then you start thinking about the house, thinking about your bank account, or thinking about your work or your children, then it has gone out of this rising and falling. So it is advisable when you meditate to just put simple words in your meditation so that the mind stays there in your meditation object without running away. So when it runs away, you know, because different words, other words comes in, then you know, these not the words that I want. Words I want is this air element, motion, rising, falling, rising, falling. So the same way, when you see something, then the mind arises, likes and dislikes. Oh, I like this thing. This is very beautiful. Have I got money to buy this shirt? Oh, I like this car. This car shape is very nice. Do I have enough money to installment for this car? Mind arises, likes and dislikes. Because of past experience, that you know what a car is. It's comfortable. You like to sit in a car. You like to drive a nice car. Past impression, past perception comes in your mind. So the mind is made up of many other components. We call it mental states, such as perception that you have seen before. It helps you to think, to analyze whether this car is good quality or this car is not good quality. Then our mind starts moving, thinking, will I buy it? Can I buy it? Do I have the money to buy it? If not, then you feel depressed, you feel disturbed. Oh, I work so hard, but I don't have money to buy a car. They feel disturbed because you can't have the car that you want. Then the mind goes on and on and on due to your seeing mind. But once it is switched off, then you don't see the car. You hear music as you walk along. The car disappears because you walk along. The car is no longer in the range of your eyes. The music comes, music that is arranged in the range of your hearing. Then when the music comes into contact with your ear consciousness, that is, if you are not deaf, if something wrong with your ear, then there's no hearing mind. But if there is nothing wrong, then arises the hearing mind. Now this hearing mind reacts the same way. It analyzes the object. Is that pleasant or unpleasant? The music is nice or is it not nice? Or is somebody shouting at you? Then you know it's not nice because somebody is shouting at you. Because the concept arises. Perception that when people shout at you, it is not nice. Comes the dislike. Then you get angry. Then angry mind arises because you don't like what you hear. Then it dies away. When you eat something else, there is a tasting mind. It is not the same mind. Different mind. If you think it is the same mind, then seeing is enough. But seeing is not enough. Once you see too long, you get fed up. You want to eat. Once you eat too much, you get fed up. You want to sleep. It's a different mind connected to your senses, because the seeing enjoyment is different from your hearing enjoyment, is different from the mind that is the tasting enjoyment. These are different. So mind arises and it falls away. When your meditation is good, when your mindfulness is strong, you can actually see the various type of mind through the senses arises and it's falling off. And it arises through seeing and is falling off, disappearing. Or the mind that arises through your touching. When you sit too long, you have backside pain. Then you know, oh, I got backside pain. Okay, Brother James say, watch that feeling. Painful feeling, painful feeling. Okay, come back. Rising, falling, rising, falling. Now the mind goes to the air element, no longer on the backside feeling. We think it is the same mind that gives an identity that it is my mind. It is what I think. It is my concept. It is my belief, my idea. But it is not so. It does not belong to you. It is just a state of mind that arises and disappears. The concept do not belong to you. The belief is not yours. Today you may believe in one thing. In another few years you believe in another thing. A total different thing. If you believe in A, does not mean forever you believe in A. No. Next year you may believe in B. In another 5 years' time you believe in C. So that mind that believes in A is not yours. It has passed away. You have overgrown that belief. You have overgrown that liking for certain thing. Or music. We grow up different age. We like different types of music. As we grow older, then perhaps we need more gentle music. Music that is more pleasant and more slow to the ear. But when you're young, we don't like that type of music. We like it hot. Because you're full of energy. So, it's the different state of mind that constantly rise and disappear, rise and disappear. When you develop that mindfulness, that is where the knowing comes. Our meditation is the knowing meditation. Mindfulness that develops the knowing meditation. Knowing of what this mind and this body is. The knowing. That once we know that this mind, there is no belonging to somebody. It is just a mind that just arises at that moment through the contact of the senses. And then it passes away. And when you hold on to it, then it continues longer. That is the phenomena. The attachment mind arises, the craving mind arises. You say, oh, that is beautiful. Then you sit and stare for 1 minute, for 5 minutes. And you can easily also watch the television for 1 whole hour because it's interesting. Because you enjoy seeing the movie. Because you like the movie goes accordingly to what you like in your mind to see. Some like romance, some like action movies, some like storyline, some like knowledge, National Geography. We have different liking. We develop different liking and we have different formation of mind, perception, what individual, each of us like differently. But the importance in knowing the mind is that we would not be deluded by the mind. That when strong craving arises in our mind, it produces a lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of mental pain. If you can't have what you see, if you can't have what you smell, or taste, or touch. And you will get depressed, and you will suffer mentally. That depends on how strong the object is, the craving is. Sometimes it lasts for a long time, hours and days. Or when you get angry, it can last for years. Sometimes you remember it for a whole lifetime that somebody has done something bad to you. You'll never forget, neither will you forgive. Because of the hatred mind that you have developed in your mind very strongly. These are things that destroy our calmness, our happiness, our joy in life. If you do not watch the mind, if you're not aware of your mind or mindful of your mind, then it makes trouble in your mind. You suffer without knowing. You wake up in the morning and say, "Ayo, I'm so unhappy today." You're very grouchy, and you grumble and you scold. You have bad temper, but you don't know why. You don't know why you're so bad tempered today, because you're not aware of what is inside your mind. Mind has hold on to problem. In the past, many years ago, or yesterday, or last week, or last month, it has hold on to an object that is unpleasant, but you're not aware, and it builds up and builds up. And even in dreams, you have bad dreams. It goes in your dreams as well. So, in meditation, when you develop this knowing of this mind, it becomes clear to us because of the training of mindfulness. Because we train to see. If you're not trained to see, you won't see. Because you're trained to see. So how many of us are trained to see our mind? The more you train to see your mind, the more happy you become. Because you're able to let go. You're able to say, okay, this mind is a lot of nonsense. It has caused me enough problem. Forget about it. Every time it arises, forget about it. Let it go. And as you keep on letting it go, the object becomes weaker and weaker. Very soon, it do not arise anymore. So in other words, you have overcome this object. This one object that produces chaos in your mind. There are people with very strong remorse. But it builds on and on and on and on until the mind cannot stand it. So the mind goes psycho. Because that's the only way to stay alive, self-preservation. The mind preserves life. It preserves life itself. Our mind preserve. Try to maintain the sanity of mind and preserve our mind in the sense that sometimes we are hurt, we try to bluff and say, okay, we are not hurt, so that we can maintain our sanity of mind. So, when it is too much and goes crazy, then he cannot remember what has happened. Then he talks nonsense. And that's the only way he stays alive. Go crazy. And when you see a doctor, he gives you tranquilizer so you don't think. Make your mind very blur. Make your mind sleepy. So you can't think. So when you can't think, then you're not disturbed. Because you can't think. You're so sleepy all the time. You can't think. Even when thoughts comes, you don't notice it at all. The problem arises because they are not trained to see the mind. Only in meditation, in this method taught by the Buddha, that we train to see our mind. The more you're able to see the mind, more there is this knowing, differentiate between a mind that is happy mind. What makes the happy mind? Because there is pleasant objects. When you see somebody, your good friends that you haven't seen for many years, then you become very happy because he's a good friend. Then you know, today I'm happy. I'm happy because I have seen a good friend, a long-lost friend, a good friend. Then you know it's a happy mind. But you do not attach to that mind. Once you attach to it, and when the friend goes away, then you feel down. Then you say, I don't know when I can see him again, because you're already attached, not letting go of the object. Now, if you're watching the mind, you could see the events of your mind unfolding depending on the situation. Then you know, craving mind. I'm happy, now I'm sad, because I'm attached to my friend. I do not want to see him go. Now I'm sad. Okay, craving mind. Once you note it, you know it, then it becomes short-lived. That mental state die off. Then you are free from the prolonged suffering. Every time we cut short our suffering, we have more space for happiness. But if your mind is filled with unhappiness, there is no space for happiness. Why? Because you keep thinking about nonsense things that make you unhappy. You keep on holding on to all those unpleasant things in your mind that makes you unhappy. Because you think it is my mind. Because you think somebody do this to me. But you do it to yourself. Now somebody do to you, you do to yourself. Somebody scold you once, but in your mind it has been replaying 1,000 times. You're actually scolding yourself 1,000 times when you replay it in your mind. Somebody say, you nonsense fella. You just say, you nonsense fella. You catch hold of it. Why you say I'm nonsense fella? Then your mind keep on repeating again and again. He say, I'm nonsense fella. You think he's very good, meh? Why he say, I'm nonsense fella? Then it keeps on replaying in your mind, and you get angry 1,000 times as you replay it in your mind 1,000 times, as you keep on arising. Not because you want it to arise, because you don't know. Because of not knowing there is suffering, the Buddha says. Because we do not know what is in this mind, therefore we suffer. Because we do not know what to do with it, then we suffer. Once you know, you recognize the mind, you know its cause of arising, you take away the cause, there is no more suffering. The Buddha's teaching is the theory, the meditation is the practice. To verify what the Buddha taught, whether what the Buddha taught is true or not true. But when you experience it directly for your own self, without anybody saying anything, direct experience, then you verify, wow, it is true, it is so. What the Buddha said is exactly so. I've experienced it myself. People don't believe it's their own thing, nothing to do with me. But I believe because I have experienced it myself. Meditation is that experience to verify the truth of what the Buddha says. The truth of this suffering, this cause of suffering, and how we can cease the suffering by way of practice, by way of mindfulness, by way of knowing the mind, by way of understanding how it works and taking away the cause. There's no more suffering. And it's quite simple, just to let go. But before you let go, you must develop the detachment. If the craving is so strong, you will never let go. You always cling to it. Then you won't let go. So you have to learn to detach. And that's what we are doing now. Whatever arises, seeing, knowing, feeling arise, watch it rise, watch it fall. Thoughts arise, watch it rise, watch it fall. Feeling arises, watch it rise, watch it fall. Every time you watch it rise, watch it fall, you develop the mental states of detachment. Alubhacitas in Pali. The mental states, which is real. It is not imagined. It is not just teaching. It's not just a word. It is something real existing in your mind that arises. We call it the detachment mental states that arise. Just as the grieving mental state. It is real. It is not imagined. When you want something, you can really feel it burning. You can feel the suffering when you can't have what you want. It is real. It is not something imagined. It is something real. You see it as very simple in a meditation. Rising, falling, rising, falling. But it is not that simple. We develop a lot of things you don't know until you come to a stage when the mindfulness becomes clear and sharp and strong. Then you can see a lot of things people don't see. People who don't meditate will never see, will never know. That is where we call it the insight. The wisdom that arises as you sit and sit and sit. Start to know a lot of things. What is happening in this mind, this feeling, in this body. How you handle your mind, how you handle your feeling, how you handle your body. Because you become experienced. People who never practice, doesn't know even how to see the mind. What is this mind? Where? Do I have a mind? Do you have a mind? Where is your mind? Do you have one? You say, surely I have one. Then can you see it? Then why can't you see it if you have one? Not see it with the eye, but seeing with the mind. Mind see mind. I cannot see mind. I can only see body. I can only see form, color, shape. Ear can only hear sound. So mind arises through these 5 consciousness: seeing, smelling, tasting, touching. But the 6th one is most difficult. Most difficult. Not through the senses. That is happening in the present moment. When you see it, only mind arises. Oh, I like it. I don't like it. But the mind one is difficult because it can see even when the object is not present. That is the most difficult one. Which you are confused. You can see the past. Can see the present. Can see the future. Things that have not come. That is the most confusing part of the mind. And that is the mind object. Not the external object that you can see through the senses. Mind object which you can't see with your eye. Cannot smell with your nose. Cannot taste with your tongue. Cannot touch with your hand. That is the most difficult one that you are learning to see. Mind object. That is the most difficult one. When you're angry at somebody, he's in the present. But when he goes away, you think of that person in your mind. You're still angry. But he's no longer there. Why are you angry? The object is no longer there. When it is there, you look at him, your eye also fire come out. Yes. Then you say, okay, he's there, I'm angry. But he's not there. But he's there in your mind. He is still there in your mind as a mental object in the past because he's already past. He has gone away. The present is he's no longer here. But you are still angry at something that is no longer here, no longer happening. That's the most difficult one to deal with. My object. And in meditation, you have to deal with that apart from the sense object. Because you have to deal with the 6 objects. The 6 types of object. The external one is much easier to deal with. As we go to the Dhammanupassana, the 4th foundation of mindfulness, to develop mindfulness on Dhamma, you learn to be aware or mindful of external object. That is much easier. But the internal one, that is difficult. But there is no choice. You have to learn to see them, to learn to know these objects that registered in the mind, these objects that we experience every day, and it just registered, mind something like a computer, and then it comes out. That is where in your dream you see a lot of all these objects that keep on coming out in your dreams, and sometimes you join here, join there, it doesn't make sense. But if you have a lot of unhappiness in your mind, so when you sleep, you have less control of your mind, becomes freedom for this mind to move. When you are awake, then you have more stronger intention to do something. But when you sleep, the intention is weak, and so this object just come out in your dream. Sometimes you can dream 10 objects, 10 dreams a night, or 20 dreams a night. If your mind keeps catching on objects, then you have various type of dream, different type of dream. After you dream of your loved one, after you dream of stranger, after you dream you go shopping, after you dream you travel somewhere else, don't know where, place you haven't seen before, you meet people you haven't seen before. It is very strange. It is just this reservoir of mental objects that comes out. And when we meditate, and when we don't see, we close our eyes, we don't try to smell this and that, then the mind pulls a lot of these mental objects. If your intention is not directed, we call it the vitakka. Application of mind is not strongly developed on your rise and fall. Then the thoughts keep on rising and running all over. Then you think of this, think of that, think of this, think of that, because it keeps holding on to some of these objects that arises in your mind. And it is very fast. Whereas the external object is slow, but mind object is extremely fast. In 1 minute, millions of objects arises. Depends on which one you hang on to, and then continue the thoughts in your mind. External one, change very slow. You can see the object for a long time before it moves. Or you hear sound, but sound is a bit fast. Different high and low tune is a bit fast. If you can catch it, you can catch the sound very fast. Arising, disappearing, different sound. If your mindfulness is sharp, the mind object is very fast. But once you anchor on the object, they could produce a lot of mental pain, a lot of disturbances and sadness in your mind. Once you anchor on an object that is unpleasant. But of course, if you anchor on a pleasant object, then you have a very pleasant feeling, a very happy mind. When you think, oh, I work so hard, now I have so much money saved in the bank, and I put the money in the FD. Every month I have $3,000-$4,000 to spend. I can eat what I want, go where I want. Now if you can maintain that thought for half an hour, indeed you are a happy man for half an hour. Yes. Is the Buddha say, money rightly earned with sweat. When you think of that, it makes you happy. Yes. But there are some who can anchor on such type of thoughts. There are some who are quite contented, and 3,000, 4,000 is enough for them. Quite a very nice life for the rest of their life. Unless they think about inflation, then the sadness come in. They say, "Ayya, my 3,000 now become 1,000." Then they feel angry, and then they probably start scolding somebody. When they have a change of perception, the change that they don't like, if it's a change they like, okay. But if it's a change that they don't like, then they feel unhappy. And it is all in the mind. You can sit there for hours and hours, and the mind that arises happiness and sadness, and for the hours and hours, nobody do anything to you except you do your thing to yourself. Do you think that is the truth or not? Everybody experience such type of phenomena in the mind. Unless you're totally unaware, like a block of wood. Most of us are aware. Right or not? You can sit at home for 3 hours, and in your mind you have a happiness and sadness, happiness and sadness. So we do not have that calmness, tranquility, because the object keeps pulling us up and down, happiness, sadness. I always say like a yo-yo, pull up and down. See your children playing the yo-yo? with the finger, chup, 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 and the yo-yo go up and down. And our mind, the same thing, chup, 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 pulling out of the object, pulling up the object one by one like that. And he pulls the wrong object, and he become unhappy. He pulls the right object, and he become happy. If you know how to maintain it, then you're happy for a longer time. But if you are not aware, you pull the wrong object, you maintain it, then you're unhappy for a long, long time. So do you think that seeing your mind is essential for your happiness, for your peace and calmness of mind? It is most essential for mental development because we have a higher aim. Higher aim than just being controlled by these mind objects up and down. We have a higher aim of developing our mind into deeper samadhi, calmness, peacefulness. We have a higher aim of developing our mind to develop wisdom, to understand things clearly without being confused, without being manipulated and controlled by ignorance. Wisdom, which is important. Buddha says that realization, once you realize the inner knowledge, sometimes in this meditation we say insight knowledge. Insight, because this deal with the mind inside itself. Inside the mind itself arises this wisdom. The more you see, the more it develops. And then you're able to let go these mental states. Once you develop it, become very habitual. You one look at it, it disappears. It's like a switch. Switch on the light, you switch off the light, you switch on the light, switch off the light. When you're mindful, say, And sometimes it becomes so habitual that it switch off by itself. You don't have to say, oh, this is angry thought, switch it off. No need. An angry thought arise. Shoop, it shut off by itself. It is very strange. Because you have developed that habit in your mind. And our mind relies a lot on habit. When you always do it, it becomes like that. Habit makes a character. When you always do a certain thing, then that becomes your character. People look at you, recognize you because you always do the same thing. It becomes a character because you do the same thing. If you are a tea drinker, you always go to the coffee shop, people know you drink tea, they call for you now because you always drink tea. So you're a tea man. If you're a coffee, you're a coffee man. Because habitual, because you like the taste and you keep drinking the same thing. Our mind the same way, it works. If you take the object again and again and again and again the same way, then it will take the object the same way. When you easily get angry, and you continue easily get angry, very soon you'll always be angry because you take any object that comes, you get angry. There's one lady in my temple in Penang. She's nasty, but she's actually good heart. But her behavior is very nasty. She never say good things. She always say bad things. So when I was young, well, the temple is like my second home. I'll be there and say, Auntie, how are you today? Bad lah, bad day lah. I say, oh, why is it bad day? Bad day lah. Don't ask, bad day. She never say anything good. She always say bad. And the first thing she see you is, are you not dead? I say, hey, at first I feel so uncomfortable. I never do anything. Why she start scolding me when she see me? She always think that when I scold you first, then I win. Because I don't wait for you to scold me. So I scold you first. So I win. So people look at her only. I tell you, all disappear. Nobody wants to go near. And she get more and more angry because nobody goes near. Then she go and look for people and start scolding. So it becomes a character. But she's actually a nice lady. She comes to the temple. She cleans the temple. She cooks some food and give it to the monks. She's actually a good lady. But she's like that, habitual. It's habitual. I don't know why. How she get this type of habit. But she just make it habitual. Because the mind works that way, habitual. So, we have to change. The Buddha says that the mind is conditioned. So therefore, it can be reconditioned. The mind is not always like that. You don't say, I am born angry one. Nobody is born angry one. I am born loving one. Nobody is born loving one. We create it in our mind. Nobody is born like that. We make it in our mind. By reconditioning, we can change our mind. A person who is very disturbed can make the mind peaceful and calm. A person who is very sad can make the mind happy. Because it can be reconditioned. Why? Because it is conditioned, the Buddha says. Therefore, it can be reconditioned. It is not always like that. Therefore, as we meditate, we can change our mind. We can change our mind to become more mindful, more pleasant, more peaceful, more happy, more tranquil, more concentrated. We can change. Once you change your mind, you change your life. Because your life depends on your mind. Life becomes different. Your lifestyle becomes different. So I have talked very general about the mind today, because I know last week is a bombshell. You go back and you can't see your mind, it's just blank, because you're trying to use your eye to see your mind. No, you don't use your eye to see. In 1,000 years, your eyes will never see your mind. It's your mind to see your mind. It's the mindfulness in your mind that recognize what is happening in your mind, and to let go all those unpleasant things that constantly arises in your mind. You have to learn to let go. To tell yourself, let go, let go, let go. And try to develop wholesome thing in your mind, pleasant objects, makes your life more peaceful, more happy. Try not to cling on to those unpleasant things and cause so much sorrow, mental pain for your own self.